Growing Up White. It's Weird. Book 1, Chapter 3, My Little Girl. Chapter 2, we left off with me in Hawaii, 1968 to 1970. I was age 8 to age 10. Now, in the late 60s, there was the hippie movement or hippie revolution, and it did happen in Hawaii. I remember walking down the street from our Army housing to a place called The Shell. The Shell was an outdoor amphitheater or venue, and it had a large concrete shell that came up halfway over the stage and a huge lawn. I don't remember the music, but I know it was rock, and I do remember the screen behind the stage had psychedelic images on it. Also, a lot of hippies. My mother would like to pose me with some of the hippies. For example, there's a picture of me with a hippie girl in her 20s, and then a picture of me with a bikini girl in her 20s. That was my mother. Now also, since it was that time, my mother let me grow my hair a little longer. I'm not saying down past my shoulders. It was about to the base of my skull in the back and over my ears on the sides, and it was considered long. There is a picture of me on the porch of our Army base housing unit giving 2 peace signs, and my mother, who loved to write captions, wrote this: "My little girl." Here's how that came to be. Hawaii, Honolulu, is famous for many things. One of them is Leonard's Bakery. And when I went back in 2021, Leonard's Bakery is still there. It's a place where we would get our baked goods and mostly birthday cakes. My mother took me there one day in her car. Now here's the thing about that time. We didn't have air conditioning, it was hot, so we always drove around with the windows down. Plus, we never used seatbelts. Now that sounds weird, but here's something even weirder. My mother would actually cut the seatbelts out of our car so we couldn't use them. That was my mother. And my father, he never used a seatbelt either. And I remember how I used to drive him around. Now, when I started driving, my father would have a new car every 3 years, and he would like to be driven around. So when I got my license, I loved driving him around. One of the places that we would go was the Philadelphia Naval Base. It's a place where you can go to shop at the Navy Exchange, which is like a small convenience store where you could buy like cigarettes and some things that soldiers would need. And I remember the prices were always cheap and you didn't have to pay tax. Then there was the commissary or grocery store. You could walk out with 2 shopping carts filled with food for under $50. We shopped there quite often, and there's some really interesting weirdness that went on there, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, so back to Hawaii. We're at Leonard's Bakery. My mother goes there with me to get a cake. She goes in, she leaves me outside, windows down. I'm in the passenger seat sitting there. Here's the thing about that time. There really wasn't any crime or missing children reported. It was a very safe area. I'm in the car by myself, and an older guy in a car next to me starts talking to me. Now, I don't remember the exact conversation, but I remember shortly afterwards, my mother came out, got in the car, she looked at me, she looked at the guy and said, "Oh, do you know him?" And the guy in the car next to me said this to my mother: "No, I'm just talking to your little girl." I was cute as a child, and I was still cute up until my teens. In fact, an older teenage boy said to me, "You're cute enough to be a girl." Oh, and girls also commented that I was very cute. And maybe, just maybe, that is why my mother's best friend, second oldest son, who was age 19, raped me. And here is the story behind the rape. He was the second oldest child of my mother's best friend's family. He was the cool guy. Now, he did drop out of school. He had long hair and some kind of goatee. He drove a chopper, which was a motorcycle. He drove a fast Mustang with Krager wheels, and it was all souped up with headers, and he had a Hurst shifter, and he would often take me out for rides if he had to go to the store to pick something up. And he drove fast, really fast. And I thought, like everybody else, he was the cool guy, like the Fonz. And he had friends who were cool too. They all drove choppers just like him. He was a mechanic, so we'd see their choppers over where they lived and cars that he would fix and work on. Also, he and his friends would give people nicknames. For example, the youngest child in the family, who was a year older than me, was called Wart. Sometimes Puss, but mainly Wart. Then, one of his friends gave me the nickname of Tardo. Yeah, Tardo. Sounds weird, but here's the thing. When you're a young kid and these cool guys give you a name, it's like, yeah, I like that. But that's not something you want to be known as. However, that's what they called me. And since we were fake cousins, like I said, my mother was called Aunt, and we would call their mother Aunt. We were like a big family. We would do many things together, one being a sleepover. Their duplex was a 3-bedroom, 1-bath, brick house connected to another one, and it had a side yard with a driveway. I would sometimes sleep over. Upstairs, they had the 3 bedrooms. Master bedroom in the front for the mom and dad. Then you had a bathroom with a sink, toilet, and a shower tub. Then you had the boys' room. Then you had the girls' room. I would sleep in the boys' room. I just happened to be sleeping in the bed with the guy who raped me. And I remember just laying there, asleep, like I was in Hawaii when the visitor in the night came, and I heard him say to me, "Don't say a word." He rolled over, got on top of me, pulled down my underwear, and raped me. Now, remember, at the time, I'm 12 years old. This guy is the coolest guy in the neighborhood. And in my mind, here's what I thought. Wow, I must be special. He chose me. Yes, that is weird. And that is an awful thing to do to a boy, a girl, a man, or woman. And I'm sure at this time, he doesn't remember. He doesn't care. And sadly, I never told anybody about what had happened. But you know what? I remember, and I do care. And that was not the only time something weird like that happened. I went to summer camp for a month back in Pennsylvania, around the same age, at a place called Camp Shalom. Being the second child, the middle child, my mother had a special fondness for me. So she worked hard, saved up for money, and sent me to this Jewish camp for 1 month. I know it wasn't cheap, and the kids there were all well-to-do, let's say. For example, in our cabin, one kid had golf clubs and a special drum pad, and other kids had things I've never seen before. And they used to get gift boxes weekly from their parents with all these elaborate items and food. Now remember, I am the only Gentile in an all-Jewish camp, so I don't really know their customs or what they eat, but I sure did learn a lot, especially about lox, bagels, and cream cheese. When I wrote to my mother and told her about these gifts all these kids were getting, what she did was she had her best friend who worked at some special food store out on the main line outside of Philadelphia send me a huge box of expensive candy and jams and food. And when I got it, the kids all looked at me like, oh, he's one of us too, even though I was a Gentile, not a Jew. And of course, it was an all-white camp. Now, like any camp, we would do the usual things. We went on a canoe trip. We had campfires with marshmallows. We practiced sports. In one event, a relay, I was running so fast, our camp counselor nicknamed me Super Legs. Yeah, that was cool. A lot better than Tardo. Then one time, we went to another camp where all these other Jewish camps would compete at different events. For example, mine was volleyball. And while playing, I fractured my pinky finger, but they took care of it. And here's the thing about Jewish camps. There is a hierarchy. The camp we went to compete was actually above the well-to-do kids camp I was at, and they were actually jealous of that camp. I was just happy to be in the camp I was in, and then we went to the other camp that was like elaborate. I remember they had a lake and a ski machine where you would put on water skis attached to some kind of device, and you could ski around in a circle. Their cabins were like little homes, and they all had a single bed. We were in log cabins with bunk beds. Our camp was a mix of kids from maybe 10, 11, 12, my age group, to about 16 or 17. So I was around kids my own age and kids older than me. For fun, they had a wedgie machine, which is basically 2 wood posts sticking up, 1 wood post over it, and a hook in the middle. And what they would do is take kids and hang them up by their underwear on the hook, giving them a wedgie. Yeah, white kids having weird fun. Now, no one did that to me. However, I do remember commenting to some older kid who was on the wedgie machine, hey, how's that feel to have a wedgie? Well, unfortunately, he got payback. One day I was just out on the field, and out of nowhere, he came running and tackled me and said, how does it feel now, kid? Okay, so I mentioned we were in bunk beds. I was on a bottom bunk. And then one night, I got a little visit. Again, I'm asleep, and a body sits next to me. And the person says, don't worry, I won't hurt you. And then I blanked out. And the next morning, I went to the counselor and said, I'm not feeling well. Can I go to the infirmary? The infirmary was a building with rooms to itself where a medical professional would look you over and cure you, give you some medication, or have you stay the night. So I went to the infirmary, and I pretended to be sick for at least 1 week so I could sleep in the infirmary and feel safe. And again, I never told anyone about what had happened. So let's end chapter 3 there. I think that's enough white weirdness for now.